On April 2nd, 1991, after almost a year of seismic activity in the surrounding region, new vents on Mount Pinatubo opened and began releasing steam. This was the beginning of the first eruption of the volcano in over 450 years, during which it lay dormant. Pinatubo is a stratovolcano located in the Philippines, which sits on a destructive plate margin between the Eurasian and Philippine tectonic plate. The movement of the Philippine plate, which subducts under the Eurasian, causes the crust's rocky material to melt into the magma in the core, which can reach temperatures of over 900 degrees Celsius, which is released in the volcano. Magma first surfaced from the volcano on June 7th and continued to flow until the 15th, when a cataclysmic eruption occurred. This eruption resulted in the release of more than 5 cubic kilometres of material as an ash cloud which reached a height of 35 kilometres. This ash cloud contains sulfur dioxide which, once in the atmosphere, mixes with water to create sulfuric acid aerosols, which reflect incoming solar radiation, lowering global temperatures by 0.5 degrees Celsius between 1991 and 1993. The eruption greatly affected the lives of Filipinos, as 58,000 had to be evacuated from a 30-kilometre radius of the volcano. 847 people were killed, and a further 1.2 million who lost their homes. Adding to this was severe damage to national infrastructure and an estimated cost of more than 700 million US dollars. This video will explore the impacts of the eruption, a comparison of this eruption with other volcanic eruptions, and the lessons learned from Pinatubo.
The night the eruption happened, there was a red light on top of the mountain. There was clouds rising from the sides of the mountain. About mid-June, a huge dark grey cloud was rising above the volcano. It was rising and spreading really far and continued further and further. However, it was all very quiet. It started raining more and more, and later buildings started to collapse because of how much ash was laying on top of them. Only 2 days later the sun came up. However, everything was great again because it was covered in ash.
The explosive activity of Mount Pinatubo culminated in the climatic eruption on the 15th of June, threatening communities with pyroclastic flows and surges up to 16 kilometres away from the summit. These flows can be incredibly dangerous to communities and wipe out entire towns, as seen in St. Pierre in 1902, when Mount Pinatubo erupted and its 28,000 inhabitants were wiped out.
Firstly, they evacuated the people that lived on the slopes of the volcano. Not everyone wanted to leave, so people hid in caves inside the volcano, or close to the volcano. They had special shelters provided for them, far away from the volcano. Later, evacuation was called to the people like us living closer to the volcano. And overall, a population of 1 million people had to be evacuated. We didn't have anything to run away with, so we started walking, hoping to squeeze on one of the cars owned by the villains, so we could escape to safety. The cars were overpacked as many people running away. Finally, we found someone who could take us and started driving really, really slowly. We only got caught by the ash rain alone.
The Aita, the indigenous peoples to the island of Luzon, are particularly vulnerable to this hazard as they live on the slopes of Mount Pinatubo. Residing in wooden dwellings, they are highly exposed to the eruption and are at high risk of being wiped out completely. On top of their physical vulnerability, the Aita were also vulnerable environmentally. Their traditional hunter-gatherer lifestyle made them dependent on the surrounding forests for natural resources and food. This was made impossible by the widespread destruction of vegetation by the lahars and ashfall. In addition, the thick ashfall, up to 50 centimetres deep, made it impossible for them to return to their settlements for the foreseeable future, forcing them to find new residents elsewhere. However, the majority of the Philippine community surrounding Pinatubo were particularly vulnerable to the ash flow and lahars. The ashfall covered swaths of land and could collapse the roofs of houses were heavy enough. The vulnerability was part of a dependency on agricultural land for sustenance and livelihood. Because of this, when the ashfall devastated sugar cane plantations, fisheries and agricultural farming, livelihood was completely disrupted. Overall, 960 square kilometres of agricultural land was destroyed by the ashfall. Wood constructed buildings would also prove to be particularly vulnerable. By the end of 1992, 364 villages were either completely or partially destroyed.
When I came back to the village 3 days after the explosion, everything was grey. Our house collapsed under the weight of ash, and my family and I didn't have much left of our property. The eruption has demolished our house and land, which was everything we had, to be honest. We moved out to Manila and started life there. I guess it was for the better. The volcano eruption ruined our farmland and caused huge economic costs for us because it was our only source of income. We were made homeless, to be honest. It had very similar effects on other people living in a village. In addition, after the eruption, we have been experiencing breathing problems, which I never had before the Pinatubo eruption.
So what can you tell me about the initial eruption of Mount Pinatubo?
Well, essentially it began erupting at 8:51 AM, and the main thing that was going on was, so you had lahars, pyroclastic flows, and also a lot of ashfall in the surrounding area. Notably, the US Clark Air Force Base was hit, which caused a lot of damage, although the 14,000 men and women there had been evacuated 5 days prior.
And what was your immediate response to this?
So we headed on up to the airbase with the USGS guys and the volcanic management team from the Filipino government. Once there, at the base, we used that as an area from where we could monitor Pinatubo, particularly seismic activity, and also where the volcanic deposits were going.
Obviously, it must have been quite terrifying to get that close to the eruption. How did that information you gathered help with the response?
It was very important to the response. It made a lot of key changes happen, so we extended the danger zone to 40 kilometres, saving a lot of lives, evacuated a good 60,000 more people, also closed surrounding airports because we could help map the ashfall and where that was going to go, and that could have caused a lot of damage if we hadn't done that.
And what process was taken to rebuild the community?
So the coordination of all the NGOs, private sector agencies, government agencies, was all done by the Filipino government. That was primarily, a lot of the resources went into rehabilitation, recovery obviously, but a lot was also put into changing it so the vulnerability was reduced for future incidents. So for example, 2 billion Filipino pesos was spent on the relocation of all the Aita people in the area. That's the native population that was very vulnerable and suffered a lot into the first eruption. Additionally, a lot of sort of livelihood programs were put in, such as the cattle fattening program, stuff like that. And what that did is it gave people jobs as well as putting back in infrastructure. So overall, it sort of stimulated the economy of the local area and really had a big impact.
Were there any issues faced during the rehabilitation and development stages?
Yeah, fair few issues were faced. It was tough to recover. It's a big volcano, large eruption. Individual issues other than that, 5,000 families displaced. Trying to rehouse them in quite a remote location, it's very difficult. Higher up, there was quite a few bureaucratic issues, especially later on. So initially the Pinatubo Commission was meant to monitor it, but that got cut in 2001, and there was a lot of issues infighting amongst the government over who should monitor the volcano, so there is a risk there that has continued to this day.
Otto Solidum, the director of the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, expressed that important lessons should be learned from the Mount Pinatubo eruption. This includes the necessity of collecting information about volcanoes preemptively by gathering local knowledge and scientific data, as it was only until April 1991 only 2 months before the eruption that volcanologists realized Pinatubo was active, when many small earthquakes accompanied explosions and steam vents near the volcano. Thorough research and monitoring of volcanoes around the world will provide up-to-date assessments on their conditions and increase preparedness for hazardous eruptions. The importance of this was witnessed again with the 1980 Mount St. Helens eruption, where scientists monitored the growing bulge on the side of the mountain, informing them of an imminent eruption and allowing them to draw up evacuation plans well in advance. The response to the eruption also highlighted the need for effective communication to the local populations. Poor communication between FIVOLCS and USGS had the effect of not providing the local communities with regular updates, resulting in the spreading of rumors such as that a 5-kilometer-long fissure had opened and that Olongapo would soon be hit by a lateral blast, even though the main eruption had already occurred. Prior to Mount Pinatubo, it was assumed that the volume of gas emitted from a volcanic eruption depended on the amount of magma and the saturation level of gas within it. However, Mount Pinatubo released 17 megatons of volcanic ash, much more than anticipated, indicating that large amounts of gas can accumulate as bubbles and remain in the magma chamber. This excess gas is potentially what made the Pinatubo eruption so explosive and provides key data to understanding future volcanic eruptions.